The evening had settled over the quiet neighborhood with a softness that only early summer evenings seemed to bring. Warm, but not suffocating, the air held a perfume of lilacs drifting in from the garden outside Linda's small porch. She had left her windows half open to invite the evening breeze inside. And the rustle of curtains made the atmosphere feel both intimate and serene. Linda had spent the day busying herself with errands that didn't really need doing. Watering plants, rearranging books on her shelf, tidying the already tidy kitchen. There were days when silence pressed too heavily and she needed movement to quiet the hum of thoughts. She wasn't lonely exactly, but she lived alone. And in quiet moments, she sometimes felt as though life had moved past her, leaving echoes instead of voices in her house. She had just poured herself a glass of chilled white wine, planning to sit by the window with a novel, when an unexpected knock broke through the evening calm. It wasn't sharp or hurried, just a steady, deliberate rapping at the door. Linda frowned, a little startled. It was past 9, too late for deliveries, and she wasn't expecting anyone. Curious, she set her glass aside and crossed the room. When she opened the door, her surprise deepened. There stood Mark. Mark, her best friend, Sharon S. son the boy she had watched grow from a shy teenager into a confident young man. He was 26 now, taller than she remembered, his shoulders broad. His dark hair slightly tousled as though he'd run a hand through it nervously on his way over. And in his hands, held carefully like something fragile, was a small gift box wrapped in plain brown paper and tied with a ribbon. Mark Linda's voice betrayed her confusion, though she smiled warmly out of habit. What on earth are you doing here at this hour? He shifted on his feet, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face. Hi, Linda! I hope it's not too late. I was just passing by. Thought I'd stop in! His eyes darted briefly to the gift box, then back to hers. Linda's curiosity sharpened. Passing by. He lived nearly minutes away. She opened the door wider. Don't just stand out there. Come in! He stepped inside, his presence instantly filling the space with a strange kind of energy. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't the easy familiarity of a neighbor dropping in either. Closed the door behind him, her mind racing with questions she didn't ask yet. What's this? She nodded toward the package he still held. Mark offered a small, almost sheepish smile. It's for you. He extended it. Linda took the box, feeling its surprising weight. The paper crinkled beneath her fingers, the ribbon slightly uneven, as though tied in haste. She raised an eyebrow. For me? What's the occasion? There doesn't have to be, he said simply, though his tone carried something unspoken beneath it. She carried the box to the small table by the sofa and carefully untied the ribbon. The paper slipped away, revealing a velvet case. Linda glanced up at him, and Mark gave a slight nod, urging her to open. Inside, nestled against black satin, lay a necklace delicate silver with a teardrop pendant of amber stone. The amber glowed softly even under the lamplight, as if it carried a captured warmth of its own. Linda inhaled sharply. Oh, Mark! It's beautiful, she murmured, running her finger lightly over the stone. This is far too much. Why would you? It reminded me of you, he interrupted gently. His voice was steady, more sure of itself. Warm, strong, natural. I wanted you to have it. Linda looked at him fully then, trying to read his expression. She had known Mark for years, watched him awkwardly fumble through adolescence, listened to his mother brag about his college achievements, seen him at holiday gatherings where he was always polite, always kind. But the man standing before her now wasn't the she remembered. There was an intensity in his eyes, something that unsettled her, because it was unfamiliar, yet undeniably sincere. Mark, she began, intending to protest, to remind him that gifts like this carried meaning, and she wasn't sure she wanted to untangle what that might mean between them. But the words faltered on her tongue. He stepped closer, not threateningly, but with quiet resolve. I need to tell you something, Linda. Something I should have said a long time ago. Her breath caught. The air seemed heavier, charged. She closed the box gently and set it aside, folding her hands in her lap as though bracing herself. Go on, she said softly. He swallowed, his jaw tightening briefly before. I've had feelings for you for years. I know, it probably sounds crazy, and I know what you're thinking, but it's the truth. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. Linda blinked. Stop. Of all she had imagined him saying, this had not been among them. A rush of heat spread across her cheeks. Mark, you're Sharon's son? She said carefully, as though reminding him of a fact he might have forgotten. And I'm she gestured vaguely to herself. Her role in his life. I know, he said quickly, his voice low but firm. I know all of it. But that doesn't change how I feel. This isn't sudden. It's not some passing. I've thought about this for a long time. And tonight He exhaled sharply, almost a laugh, but laced with tension. I couldn't keep pretending. Linda leaned back into the sofa, her heart thudding faster than she wanted to admit. She should have told him gently that he was mistaken, confused, young, but his words carried a weight that didn't feel like confusion. They felt grounded, intentional. For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of crickets. Linda's eyes flickered to the necklace again, its amber glow catching the lamplight, like a flame waiting for air. She looked back at Mark. You've put me in a difficult position, she whispered. He sat down across from her, leaning forward, elbows resting on his knees. I don't expect an answer tonight. I just needed you to know. Whatever you feel, whatever you decide it's. Enough for me that you know the truth. Linda pressed her lips together, torn between and the undeniable stirrings in her chest, stirrings she had ignored when they first began months ago. Little moments she dismissed as fleeting admiration. The way he carried himself with new confidence. The thoughtful way he asked about her life. The quiet strength she saw in his gaze. She had told herself it meant nothing. And now, here he was, placing it into words. Her glass of wine still sat on the table, untouched. She reached for it now, more to occupy her trembling hands than out of thirst. She took a sip, the coolness grounding her. Well, she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. If nothing else, you've given me a lot to think about. Mark smiled faintly, relief flickering across hers. That's all I ask. The evening stretched on quietly after that. Conversation drifted to safer topics: his work, her garden, the small town gossip that always seemed to circulate. Yet, beneath every word lingered the weight of his confession. The necklace glowed softly from its box, a reminder that something had shifted between them. And as Linda sat across from him, watching the young, was no longer simply her friend's son. She felt an unsettling truth stir within her. Part of her did indeed want to shift it back. Linda set the steaming mugs on the low coffee table, the soft clink of ceramic breaking the silence that had grown thick in the room. The amber necklace still rested against her collar, glowing faintly in the lamplight like a drop of liquid fire. Mark's eyes had followed its movement more than once, though he tried to hide it behind his steady gaze. She put an armchair opposite the sofa where Mark sat. Between them, the air vibrated with words left unsaid. Linda stirred her just for something to do, though she drank it plain. Why now? She asked suddenly, the question sharper than she intended. Her voice softened when she added, You've known me all your life, Mark. Why tonight? Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together as though bracing himself. Because I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I've carried this for years. Linda, it wasn't fair to you or to Ma to pretend I didn't feel it. His honesty unsettled her. She wrapped her arms around herself, unsure whether it was to shield her body from the summer night, as lingering heat, or to guard her heart. You say it like it's simple. Her laugh was quiet, bitter. But it's not. I'm older. I was there when you were a boy. I'm your mother's closest friend. Yes, he admitted. And that's why I respect you enough to be honest. I know what you're thinking. That it's wrong, that people wouldn't understand. But I don't care what they'd say. I care about you, about how you've been overlooked, unappreciated. I see it, even if others don't. His words pierced her more deeply than she expected. Overlooked. The word echoed in her mind, stirring memories of quiet and alone, evenings with no one to talk to, days where her reflections seemed to fade into invisibility. Her throat tightened. Mark, don't mistake kindness for loneliness. I don't want you to feel pity for me. His brows furrowed, eyes dark with sincerity. Pity. This is love or something close to it. I admire you, Linda. Not just your beauty, but your strength. The way you've held yourself with dignity, even when the world ignored you. The tea cooled in her hands, forgotten. A strange warmth filled her chest, not from the drink, but from his words. She hadn't realized how hungry she was for recognition, for someone to see beyond her smile to the tiredness beneath it. She tried to speak, but her voice trembled. Do you have any idea what you're asking of me? To even think of you that way. It feels like betraying Sharon, like betraying the woman who's been by my side for decades. His expression softening. That's why I almost turned back tonight. I told myself it was impossible. But then I thought, what if this was the one chance I had to tell you? What if tomorrow was too late? Linda's eyes stung. His words carried a truth she couldn't ignore. Time was fragile, fleeting. She had learned that with every gray hair, every passing season that seemed to slip faster than the last, silence stretched between them, broken only by the ticking clock on the mantel. Mark shifted closer, his voice dropping. You don't have to answer now. You don't even have to believe me yet. Just know that you are loved. That someone, right here, sees you as extraordinary. The words settled over her like a bomb. Extraordinary. When had anyone else called her? Her hand rose unconsciously to the necklace, fingers brushing the warm stone. Amber, she whispered, you chose well. A faint smile curved his lips, because it reminded me of you like caught inside, warm and alluring. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with a stirring she thought long gone. The night deepened around them. They sipped their tea, talked in hushed tones, their words weaving a fragile intimacy that felt both dangerous and comforting. Linda still resisted, still told herself it couldn't be, but her heart had already begun to soften, to listen. The evening settled deeper into stillness. The house cocooned in quiet. Only the refrigerator and the occasional sigh of summer wind against the window panes reminded Linda that the world outside still moved. Inside, time seemed to have bent, stretched, slowed. Linda cleared their empty mugs from the coffee table, grateful for the excuse to step away, to steady her breathing. When she returned, Mark had leaned on the sofa, one arm resting lazily across the back, as though he belonged there. The sight startled her, a grown man where she still half expected a boy. You don't have to rush off to bed, do you? He asked lightly, though there was a hopeful undercurrent to his tone. Linda shook her head, hesitant. No. Sleep doesn't come easily these days anyway. Then, maybe a movie? He gestured toward the television. Something easy. Background noise! If nothing else. It was such an ordinary suggestion, so unlike the storm of emotions that had swept through their conversation earlier, that she almost laughed. But maybe ordinary was something to hold on to while her heart shifted beneath her. All right, she said. He scrolled through options until they settled on an old black and white film romance, subtle and understated, a relic from her younger years. Linda sank into her armchair at first, keeping space between them. But as the minutes ticked on, the chair felt like an island, and the couch where Mark sat looked like a shore she longed to reach. You don't have to rush off to bed, do you? He asked lightly, though there was a hopeful undercurrent to his tone. Linda shook her head, hesitating. No. Sleep doesn't leave these days anyway. Then, maybe a movie. He gestured toward the television. Something easy. Background noise. If nothing else. It was such an ordinary suggestion. So unlike the storm of emotions that had swept through their conversation earlier, that she almost laughed. But ordinary was what she needed. Something to hold on to while her heart shifted beneath her. All right, she said. He scrolled through options until they settled on an old black and white film. Subtle and understated, a relic from her younger years. Linda sank into her armchair at first, keeping space between them. The minutes ticked on. Her chair felt like an island, and the couch where Mark sat looked like a shore she longed to reach. At some point, without quite deciding to, she rose and joined him on the sofa. She left a polite distance, enough for a cushion between them. Still, she was aware of the heat radiating from his body, of the faint scent of his cologne, sharper and more daring than she remembered on younger men. The flickering screen painted their faces in shifting shadows. A love story unfolded before them, two strangers, chance meetings, Stolen glances. Linda felt the press against her ribs. Halfway through, she shifted to adjust her legs. In doing so, her hand brushed against marks on the cushion between them. She froze, every nerve in her body alert. He didn't move away. Instead, he turned his palm upward, open, an unspoken invitation. Her heart thundered. Lodge screamed to pull back, to reclaim the safety of distance, but her hand disobeyed, settling into his. Warmth spread instantly, climbing her arm, seeping into her chest. They sat like that, silent, watching the lovers on, while their own story wrote itself quietly in the spaces between words. Linda dared a glance at him. His profile was softened by the silver light of the TV, his expression unreadable but calm, steady. When he finally turned to meet her gaze, something shifted like a door unlocking. "You're bling," he whispered. She hadn't realized she was. Her laugh was small, fragile. "I don't know what I'm doing." "You don't have to know," he replied gently. "Just feel. Be here!" The simplicity of it disarmed her. All her life had been planning, managing, enduring. Rarely had she allowed herself to simply be, her head lowered, almost without thought, until it rested against his shoulder. The movement was instinctive, natural, as though her body had found a home and had forgotten it needed. Mark shifted slightly, adjusting so she fit more against him. His arm brushed the back of her shoulders, tentative but protective. They stayed like that as the film wound toward its end. The characters on screen kissed in the rain, their silhouettes merging. Linda's throat from jealousy, but from the realization that she too was living a moment she would one day replay in memory, whether it lasted or not. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment,